Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Iniciamos a las 6 de la tarde.
Ok, buenas noches a todos. Espero que estén muy bien. Mi nombre es Jezreel Vega y bueno, yo voy a ser su instructor en la clase de interpretación. Y bueno, me gustaría comenzar la clase, bueno, pudiendo presentar
Profesor,
sí, dígame.
disculpe, yo soy la moderadora. Bueno, no sé si le iniciamos con los parámetros. Tenemos un estudiante ya en sala, entonces, y le doy todas las 2 horas para explicar su clase. Okay.
Ok, muchas gracias. Disculpe el tema. Pues, ok, sí, como decía que me gustaría dar la bienvenida a la clase. Como tal, la clase va a estar siendo impartida en el idioma inglés. Bueno, como tal, como saben, la clase es interpretación. Entonces voy a estar mostrándoles lo que es eh, muestra. Un segundito. Puedo ver mi pantalla, ¿verdad?
Sí, usted podrá ahorita compartir pantalla. Ya le di para que tengamos la opción. Ok, buenas noches a todos. Sean bienvenidos a una sesión de interpretación simultánea 2 con el profesor Jezreel Vega. Para el buen desarrollo de esta sesión les pedimos seguir estas recomendaciones. Algunos de los parámetros de las sesiones por videoconferencia. Las sesiones se graban. Pueden verlas nuevamente en la plataforma virtual. Les solicitamos que por favor silencien sus micrófonos y puedan activarlos cuando quieren hacer consultas o aportes con el permiso del docente. Les pedimos que mantengan su cámara activa. De no poder hacerlo, envíe su excusa por el chat de Zoom. De lo contrario, será retirado de la sesión y le serán restados puntos a la heterovaloración del docente. Mi rol como moderador facilitar y apoyar en la parte técnica. Consultas por el chat personal o general. Les exhorto a tener bolígrafo y papel para hacer sus anotaciones y aprovechar al máximo esta sesión. Esta sesión tiene un tiempo de duración de 120 minutos.
Ok. Bueno, muchas gracias por la introducción. So, this lesson or this subject, it's called Simultaneous Interpretation 2. So you see my name here is Jezreel Vega here. I would like to read you some welcome words just for the class. The first thing is the path of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. Welcome each of you to this wonderful simultaneous interpretation 2 course. Dream. Even if the dream seems impossible, fight. Even if the enemy seems invincible, bear the pain, even if it's unbearable. Run where the brave dare not to go. Transform evil into good, even if it's necessary to walk 1,000 miles. Love the pure and innocent, even if it's non-existent. Resist even when the body can't resist anymore. And in the end, they will reach that star, even if it seems unattainable. So, welcome again. My name is Jezreel Vega. I'm an English teacher. And again, I want to be your instructor for this class. So, this is how we're going to develop the class. Esta parte quiero hablarlo un poquito en español para que podamos estar en la misma página. Esa es la dosificación. Si pueden ver, cada clase está dividida en 2 semanas. Por lo menos la primera es Legal Proceedings, la segunda es Medical and Health Care, la tercera es International Conferences and Summits, la cuarta es Business and Corporate Events, la quinta es Scientific and Technical Fields. ¿Ok? Y como dije, la duración son de 2 semanas. Cada uno también tiene una hora práctica en la que uno está trabajando 16 horas. Y en total sería de 160 horas. ¿Ok? Así que vamos a tener bastante tiempo para trabajar y estar preparados. También para que sepan, esa es la forma como yo voy a estar evaluando a ustedes. So the first thing is that I'm going to evaluate you the self-assessment. Este assessment sería dado por medio de la plataforma de CETES. La segunda sería el actitudinal, que sería también 5%. Y cada curricular, bueno, unidad curricular, sería las actividades que haríamos en clase, ¿ok? Si notan, dice 18%, o sea que cada una tiene un valor de 18%. Y también la evaluación final, que sería el 18%. O sea que el total de toda esta suma es el 100%. Otra cosa que también sería bueno que puedan estar anotando, que en la plataforma de CETES hay es una encuesta que sería para hacer una valoración estudiantil. En esta encuesta van a estar viendo algunos temas que de repente son concernientes a ustedes. Van a poder ver cómo están también con el tema de los temas que han dado, si sienten que han sido impartidos de la forma correcta, y si no, pues se les da la oportunidad pues de que puedan repasarlos o verlos de nuevo, ¿sí? Así que cada una de las cosas que están aquí, sus respuestas y sus opiniones van a ser consideradas porque como tal a nosotros nos importa mucho eso. Esta es la segunda parte. Si notan, cada una de los puntos que está acá, si pueden ver, la primera es la puntualidad en la publicación de las guías didácticas, horarios de clases y otras obligaciones académicas. Si nota, ahí aparece que es de 1 al 5, siendo el 1 muy insatisfecho, y la 2, perdón, y 5 como muy satisfecho, ¿ok? Entonces la segunda dice, en general los contenidos presentados en cada asignatura son parte del docente, ¿ok? Entonces, esa es la segunda. La tercera dice, explicación de temas vía Zoom. Aquí van a estar evaluando cada punto de estos. Los videos de clases que presentan los docentes, ¿ok? El siguiente sería la segunda parte, dice, lea cuidadosamente cada enunciado. Le hacen preguntas si tienen computadoras, si hay un dominio en el conocimiento del docente en la materia. También si hay una actualización de contenidos. Y al final, cada uno de estos puntos pues van a ayudarnos a nosotros a mejorar al momento de hacer la impartición de clases, ¿ok? Esta sería la evaluación será la evaluación ¿sí? La heteroevaluación, perdón, y sería la actitudinal. Aquí deberían leer también las informaciones que están en la misma plataforma de CETES, ¿ok? Si hay algún punto aquí que les llama la atención, recuerden hacer preguntas para poder aclarárselas, ¿ok? Ok, hasta aquí, ¿hay alguna pregunta? ¿Algo que quieran saber? Si no, continuamos. Ok, bueno, vamos a continuar entonces. So, this part that we have in here are the instructions. So basically when we have, when we have the virtual classes, we know that sometimes we have some distractions and some things that maybe can take or move our attention. But in this case, I'm going to give you some suggestions, okay? So the first thing is that you should do is locate yourself in a comfortable place with enough light and without distractions. Also, turn off the TV and cell phone if it's necessary, okay? So remember, if you want to have like your full attention in the class, remember to do this part. Also, I'm going to ask you to read the objectives carefully. They will help you understand what you want to learn. Okay, so when you have the objective of the class and maybe you feel confused about something, remember, try to read the objectives because in that part you will see what is the goal of the teacher, what the teacher wants, okay? What is the teacher expecting from you? Also, the next one is to make it easier for you to learn the subject. The document is divided into 5 parts called models, okay? So basically, if you notice, in the platform, the CETES platform, you will see that your course is divided into 5 parts. And each part is called models. Model 1, Model 2, Model 3, Model 3, Model 4, and Model 5. And the last instruction is that you do not skip tasks. Complete each one of them in the given order, okay? So that means that in the moment that you receive the task or an assignment or an assessment or whatever you receive, try to do it in the correct order, okay? So now let's go do the part that concerns us. The first part is that we are going to talk, or we're going to start the course with this part, legal proceedings. So basically in this part, we need to talk about how we're going to start interpretation and how, as an interpreter, we have to have a knowledge. For example, the learning objectives in here are develop an awareness of professional responsibilities associated with interpreting in legal settings and conferences, arbitration and mediation. So if you see the word interpreting or interpreting appears a lot of times. So in this case, we have to understand the professional responsibilities that you receive when you're interpreting. And it's more heavy if you are interpreting in a legal setting, okay? And the second learning objective is demonstrate understanding of the terminology used in these fields in both their source and target language. So in this case, for example, let's say that you're interpreting to someone that is speaking English or does speak English, but he doesn't speak Spanish. So you will have to have a knowledge of what he's saying in his language and also in your language in this case. Okay, so these are the learning objectives for the first model. The reference materials that we're going to use are the videos and the readings. We have two videos, you see it. We have the video one that it's called A Day in the Life of a Court Interpreter, and the video two is Interpreter breaks down how real-time translation works. Okay. The second thing that we need to, well, the second material actually, is that we have reading activity. Number one, courtroom trials, depositions, and immigration hearings. Okay. Reading activity two, legal conferences and seminars, arbitration, and mediations. Okay. So each of these materials will help you to solve the activities that we will have later. So in this case, you will have two activities. The first one is listen and interpret, and it will have a value of 10%. If you see, the heaviest is the first one, and the second one is a test. So in the listen and interpret, I'm going to give you some examples. And you will have to interpret while you're listening. For example, let's say we can make a role play about the position or immigration issue. And that's how we're going to try to understand how this works, okay? So those are the two activities that we have for this model one, okay? Is there any question? If it's not question, let's continue. So the activities calendar that we have are divided into two parts. We have we have to read readings, watch videos, and finish unit one activities. So in the first week, which is this one, we need to watch the videos and finish unit one activities. Then in in week two, we have to watch videos again and develop unit one midterm test. So in the second week, just to let you know, in the second week, we need to have the first test, okay? The test is going to be about model one, okay? So take that and try to write it in your agenda if you want. Because later on, you have to do this test, well, in the second week, which is the next week, which is the next one, okay? So the next model, it's called medical and healthcare. This model has a value of the 18% of the total grades. So the learning objectives, it says, acquire an understanding of the professional obligations linked to medical interpreting, display proficiency in medical and healthcare terminology in both the source and target languages, okay? So we need to have an understanding of the professional obligations linked to medical interpreting. Now we're focusing in the part that we need to know the language, or not the language, maybe the vocabulary that medical people use, okay? So basically we need to learn the terminology of the things that they refer, and even more when we're interpreting, we need to understand the target languages, okay? In this module, we also need to use two videos again. The first one is interpreting basics, a patient in a hospital. We have to see this video. The video number 2 is basic medical terminology, practice for Spanish medical interpreters. The readings that we have are, for example, the reading number 1 is medical field and health care. So these readings will help you to earn, which is the terminology and the vocabulary, okay? So you have to understand and read these parts that we're going to talk later, okay? So this part is also divided into parts. The first one is to listen and interpret. And the second one is the test, okay? So again, we need to apply what we're learning. And in this case, we're learning, which is the part about interpreting a patient in a hospital, okay? So we're moving in scenarios. Now, this activities will be developed in these weeks. In week 3, which is the following one, not this one, the following one, will be about read and watch videos and finish unit 2, okay? Then we need to do the test in the next week, in week 4, okay? So it's important for you to be in class, and furthermore, we need to understand also what we're going to read, okay? So the module 3 is going to be about international conferences and summits. Since this model has a value of 18%, okay? Remember, this is a module 3. So in this part, we have the learning objectives. We need to develop an understanding of the professional duties and technical equipment related to interpreting during conferences and summits. Showcase proficiency in the specialized terminology used in conferences and summits in both the source and target language. Okay, so as you know, for example, if you see these people in this room, you see that they have at least someone next to them, or someone, yeah, that it's maybe at the back. Sometimes they are not, maybe they don't know the language that all the people in that area speaks. For example, if you go to a conference and you have to speak in English, and maybe you don't know how to speak in English, well, that's totally normal. So they assign you in some form an interpreter, and he will help you because you are an expert, and he also needs, well, they also need an expert for this area. If you're an expert in the area of math or in science, you as the interpreter need to be an expert, or at least know the terminology of that area. Okay. So in this model, we'll have to work with the reference materials. In this case, we have 2 materials. We have the readings and the videos. Okay, again, so we have to read this area. We need to read all of this PDF or documents. And remember, the only way to understand this kind of things is learning and reading, okay? But let's say that it's too difficult for you maybe to read. Try to listen. Sometimes we can change the PDF to audiobooks, okay? The next part is the video, and the video number 1, it's a day in the life of a simultaneous interpreter. And the video number 2 is a conference interpreting, sorry. Okay. So those are the materials that you need to use in this model 3. You will be evaluated into 2 parts. Remember, the 10% will be for listen and interpret, and the next part, it's going to be about the test, a test, okay? So every time that we finish the models, we'll have to do a test, okay? So we have the activities in calendar. This will be your week 5. And this will be the middle of the course. We need to have some readings, okay? Readings, again. The readings that I just mentioned, these ones. And also, in the week 6, you need to do the test, okay? So remember, the first week, you will use it just to develop the class. And then the next week, we will use it to do the midterm or the test. So the business and corporate events, it's your model 4. If you notice, this picture represents how people, for example, if you are in a corporate event, and if you are the interpreter, then that means that you have to be in another side, and you will be interpreting what he's saying. Por ejemplo, yo estoy aquí en una clase con ustedes. Si yo pongo que el Zoom me haga la interpretación de lo que estoy hablando, él lo va a hacer inmediatamente. Él va a hacer como si fuese un subtítulo y va a repetir todo lo que estoy diciendo, pero en inglés o en español. Entonces, eso es lo que hacen las personas que también interpretan. Okay? So, in this case, we also have to have a learning objectives. So in this part, we need to explain the role that interpreters play in facilitating effective communication during business and corporate events. Okay? So in this part, we need to understand that the most important thing in interpreting or interpretation is the effective communication. Si yo comienzo a hacer una traducción o una interpretación, perdón, acerca de algo y yo no sé de repente alguna terminología de lo que están diciendo, va a haber un vacío ahí, ¿ok? Y más si estamos hablando de un área de corporate, sería como un área de negocios, ¿ok? O sea que si, por ejemplo, estamos hablando de que vamos a hacer un negocio y yo obvio la parte de que en el negocio hay que poner una cantidad de dinero. Después, cuando van a hacer el negocio, las personas van a decir, pero, ¿qué pasó aquí? Si esto no lo dijeron. Pero eso va a estar faltando porque no hubo una interpretación efectiva o no hubo una comunicación efectiva. Entonces, la siguiente parte dice, showcase proficiency in the specialized terminology used in business and corporate events in both the source and target languages. Okay? So we need to show what we know and show the language and the terminology that we earn in the experience that we have. Okay. So in this part, we have to watch again videos and read readings. The first video is going to be about working as a business and a diplomatic interpreter. And the video number 2, it's interpreting at the United Nations. Okay. So the second video is going to be about how you need to interpret or how you need to interpret someone, and this will be your example. Okay, the video number 2. The next part is about reading number 1, importance of interpreters in business and corporate events. The reading number 2 is going to be about importance of interpreters in business and corporate events too. Okay. So again, your activities will be divided into 2 parts. The 10% will be about listening or listen and interpret. And the next part is going to be about the test. Okay. So it's important for you to understand that this test, even though it doesn't have a higher value, are important. Okay. And the listen and interpret, yes, it's true that it has a greater value, but at the end, we need to understand that this is something that it's active. This course is active, so we need to work. So the activities in this case will be developed in week 7. Week 7, we have to develop all the materials, read the readings, and also watch the videos, and finish activities, okay? Then in week 8, we have to do the test, and also if we have something pending, we need to conclude what we have pending. So this is the last model, model 5. Okay. Model 5 is divided into 18. Well, it's divided in 18% also. Okay. So this will be the model 5. And please remember, the name of this is scientific and technical fields. So if you're in a court and you are representing someone, well, you're not representing because you can represent someone. But in this case, you are talking in behalf of someone. You will have to talk about the terms and the technical fields. Okay. So the learning objectives of this are explain how interpreters contribute to scientific and technical progress by ensuring that experts from different language backgrounds can collaborate effectively, exchange knowledge, and drive innovation in these fields. Demonstrate proficiency in the specialized terminology. Okay. Use in scientific and technical fields in both the source and target languages. Okay. So if you see the word effective, it's because at the end we need to find the best way to give the message. Okay. We need to find the best way because at the end, it's something that we're doing. We're interpreting someone. Okay. So this will be divided into 2 parts, videos and readings again. The first video, it's called A Day in the Life of an Interpreter, of a translator or interpreter. You will see the difference between a translator and interpreter. And the video number 2 is tourism interpreting. Welcome to Panama. Okay, so this will be like an example of how you need to interpret someone. So the first reading, if you see, it's scientific and technical fields. And also the next one, it's scientific and technical fields 2. The next one, it's going to be divided into activities. The activities will be divided into 2. The first one is a 10%, listen and interpret. And the next one is the test. Your activities will be divided into 2 weeks. This will be the last week or the 2 last classes that you have. The first one will be divided into the readings and the videos. And we need to finish those videos and readings. And the last week will be about doing the test. And remember, if you have something pending, we'll use that week, then the week 9 or the week 10 actually, to finish those parts. Okay. So I would like to go back to this part that it's 1 second. To this one that says demonstrate proficiency in the specialized terminology. So if you see that maybe you don't know something about terminology or a topic that you're talking, for example, let's say, si hablamos acerca de frutas, y estamos hablando de un caso acerca de que hubo fruta que se perdió y la persona está hablando en español y ustedes tienen que interpretar a inglés porque la persona no está aquí en Panamá, está en Estados Unidos. En ese caso, uno tiene que antes prepararse para lo que va a hablar, ¿ok? Entonces, básicamente, al momento de presentarse, uno tiene que hablar de forma correcta, ¿ok? Entonces, eso sería el principio de la presentación. So this will be the first presentation, okay? So, me gustaría saber si hay alguna pregunta, if there's any question. ¿Hay alguna pregunta?
Por ahora no.
Ok. Bueno, veo que tengo 2 estudiantes. Quisiera también preguntar ¿cómo están con el inglés? ¿Se sienten bien con la clase de inglés completa? ¿O cómo se sienten?
Well, in my case, I could understand what you have said before.
Okay, so that sounds great. And what about you, Magdalena? No words? Okay. No worry, I got you. Okay, so right now I'm going to present to you the first lesson or the first unit, okay? So in the first unit, just to let you know, you will see 1 second, guys. You will see the model number 1. So the model number 1, okay, it's called, or the name, it's legal proceedings, okay? So I'm going to request you to pay attention to what we're going to talk, okay? So if you see, you have 2 things. You have the reading number 1, courtroom, trials, depositions, and e-positions, and immigration hearings, okay? So first of all, we're going to watch this video. So I want you to pay attention. If you can write the concepts that are relevant to you, you can write it. And then I'm going to ask you, what did you understand about the video, okay? So if you don't understand something, don't worry. I can present to you again the video, okay? So again, please pay attention, listen carefully, and try to copy the relevance ideas in the video. And it's good if you have a notebook or something, okay? So thank you very much. Please pay attention. 1 second, let me just habilitate the audio. Okay, it's on.
My name is Aide Klaus, and I interpret English and Spanish.
My name is David Sweetcoat.
Guys, can you hear? Do you listen to the audio?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And I interpret English to Spanish, Spanish to English.
My name is Tin Quan. I'm a California certified court interpreter for the Vietnamese language.
Well, I was raised biculturally, binationally. My mother's Mexican, my father's American.
When I was a political refugee staying in a refugee camp in Thailand, I would be called upon to interpret.
I was born and raised in El Salvador, and I went to a bilingual school, so I was exposed to both languages. I just became fascinated with transferring things from one language to another.
The role of the court interpreter is to serve as an instrument for communication among the different players in the court, making sure that everybody, regardless of their language ability, national origin, ethnicity or culture, has access to the court system.
My name is Viola Garcia. I work for Contra Costa County Superior Court, and I'm the interpreter coordinator. Every morning I work on a daily calendar for the next day, just to make sure that all the courts are provided with the interpreters that they need daily.
First impression you have of a courthouse is you walk in there, everything is very grand, and immediately you feel intimidated by it. You have to go through security, through the metal detector, and then you have all these deputies standing in the front entrance of the courthouse.
It's hard to talk about a typical day because work is extremely varied. But generally speaking, we start at 8 or 8:30. If we need equipment, we pick up equipment. Then we go to the courtroom that we've been assigned to. We can do a hearing that can take from less than a minute. We could possibly be assigned to a trial that can last even months.
I interpret for a wide variety of cases, from a traffic infraction to a murder trial.
That's something that's just part of the interpreter culture, is that flexibility, versatility, and ability to go from one court to another, sometimes even to another venue or county.
On the other times that I am not needed at my home court, which is Santa Clara County, I would be released to serve other courts in neighboring counties.
The environment is very formal, very highly structured. Each person has a particular role. There's a lot of protocol, and it's very important to know what the protocol is in general in a courtroom, and also specifically what that bailiff likes, how the judge likes to do things. There's a great variety of assignments. Traffic court, sexual assault cases, hearings for restraining orders, family law cases where they're talking about alimony and custody, juvenile matters. The theory and practice of the job are very different. In theory, you can hear everything perfectly, and people don't mumble. And in reality, people speak extremely fast, they mumble, so things are much messier than I thought.
Most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, I'm asked to do simultaneous interpreting, which means interpreting for the defendant for a court proceeding. When you interpret for a witness, consecutive mode of interpretation would be most appropriate, because everything the witness say is interpreted, and the interpretation would be taken down by the court reporter. So the interpreter needs to take careful and meticulous notes of the utterances of the witnesses. And from time to time, this is the least frequent mode of interpretation that is required of us, which is called sight translation.
It's important to be accurate, maintain the register. We don't want to take away from the message or add anything.
I always carry in my bag notes and lists of words, and I continuously try to improve my vocabulary.
I run into many types of people who play very many different roles in the legal and courtroom environment. You have the defendant, what I call the limited English speaking person. May it be the defendant or the witness that you need to interpret for.
Do you solemnly swear that you will well and fully interpret from English to Spanish and from Spanish to English all questions, answers, testimony, and proceedings in this matter?
I do. We cannot give legal advice because we're not trained as lawyers to give legal advice. We're language people. We are trained to convey meaning to the person. So it's very important that we keep our roles limited to what we're trained to do.
We have more opportunity right now for interpreters, and it's really in high demand right now. Take classes on everything. Try and get as much knowledge under your belt. Go to the different locations, different courtrooms, and just sit in the back, see what's going on.
Every day is different, and it's a never-ending opportunity to learn something new every day.
So thank you very much again. So in this video, we were talking about how, as interpreters, how we need to face like this great issue that, for example, you're interpreting someone that maybe he doesn't or he did something bad, or he's a victim. So at the end, I would like to know first, what are your comments about the video? I would like to hear you right now. If you have any comment, something that caught your attention, maybe. Okay. Okay. So the most important thing here, if we notice, is that, for example, the interpreter needs to ensure fairness and due process. So this means that at the moment that the legal interpreter, if you notice at the end of the video, they were talking that if you accept to interpret someone, you cannot interfere into his decision. So that means that, for example, if we're talking that, let's say that we're hearing something that maybe he's not okay or he's not right what he's saying, you cannot interfere. No se puede intervenir. And the reason is that we need to respect the process that it's happening at the moment. Okay? So without accurate interpretation, these individuals may be unable to defend themselves adequately. So at the moment that we're interpreting someone, remember, you're leading the potential of justice. You're helping, you're doing what is the right thing. Okay? So something else that maybe I noticed at the video is that if you decide to give the right way or give the best, you will receive the effective communication. You will understand. Okay? So the effective communication and understanding will help you to facilitate clear and accurate communication between the accuser and the person that you're representing, or, well, interpreting, actually. So sometimes maybe you will interpret it judges, attorneys, a lot of enforcement officers. So they convey to announcers of legal terminology and concepts, ensuring that both parties understand the proceedings and can effectively participate in the legal process. Okay. So something else that I noticed in this video, and this will be the last thing, is that we need to protect legal rights. Okay. So we'll do this by understand and exercise their rights, such as the right to remain silent, the right to an attorney, and the right to a fair trial. Okay. So this video was very, very exciting. I like it because I know that at the moment that you will want to be an interpreter, this will be the key, or a key just to improve your English and also improve what you need to learn. Okay. So in this new lesson, as you know, we're going to talk about courtroom trials. So in this area, interpreters are frequently called upon in criminal, civil, and administrative court proceedings. As you notice, sometimes, let's say, voy a hacer esta parte en español. Algunos intérpretes, pues, son llamados porque las personas fueron violadas, raped. Algunas personas fueron acusadas por cosas que no hicieron. Y esto es muy, muy normal en los Estados Unidos. Aún así, les diría que aquí en Panamá hay personas que hablan inglés, pero no hablan español y son acusadas. Y en esos casos se requiere un intérprete. ¿Ok? Entonces es muy importante. It's too important. It's very important for you to understand that at the moment that you are an interpreter, you will have to have this legal terminology. So you need to be familiar with this terminology and the structure of a legal or a trial. Sorry. Okay. So this includes understanding the roles of judges, attorneys, witnesses, and defendants, as well as the process of jury selection, opening statements, examination of witnesses, and closing arguments. Okay. So it's important for you to understand this part. Okay. So if you are interpreting someone, let's say that he's talking about something, and in your case, he's talking to you about the structure of the juries and also actually of the courtroom. So we need to understand how they are divided. Okay. So in here we have the legal depositions. So basically the legal deposition, this is a new part. The legal depositions are formal proceedings in the pre-trial phase of a legal case in which witnesses, including parties involved in the case and third-party witnesses, are questioned. Under oath, the main purpose of a deposition is to gather sworn testimony and evidence, which can be used in court during trial for discovery purposes or for case settlements, negotiations. Depositions are typically, yes, conducted in a more relaxed and informal setting, such as a law office or conference room, rather than a courtroom, okay? The primary role of the interpreter during a legal deposition is to ensure accurate and impartial communication between the deponent, the person being disposed, and the questioning attorney, okay? So this is another scenario that you will have. So in this case, we'll have to understand that this is another area of the interpreter that he will have to be involved. So the main purpose of this is to gather the testimony and evidence that will be used in the trial, okay? So it's important, for example, let's say, digamos que estamos en un caso en el que la persona está siendo deportada, pero la persona vino a el país por un tema de que está siendo perseguido. Es una persona que está siendo perseguida. Entonces le está buscando asilo. ¿Qué ocurre? Va a haber un legal deposition. This is what we call legal deposition. So this is a pre-trial phase, en donde él y la persona que sería el attorney, which is the lawyer, he will be trying to understand and listen to his information. And in the case that maybe the person doesn't speak English, he will be, well, the person that will be the interpreter will be interpreting what he's saying. So it's very important to have a clear understanding of what he's saying. Hay que tener un entendimiento muy claro de lo que está diciendo. ¿Pero por qué? Porque como dije, si en el caso tal de que la persona esté siendo deportada y digamos que a la persona se le olvida mencionar de que él es una persona que está siendo perseguida, que es una persona política perseguida, pues, por su país, y digamos que el intérprete no menciona eso, lo que va a causar es que la persona, cuando va a representarlo, no va a tener, pues, un entendimiento claro de lo que está pasando. ¿Ok? Entonces, es muy importante que al momento de que la persona lo va a estar interpretando, se entienda lo que está diciendo. ¿Ok? ¿Está claro todo eso? Muy bien. So, let's continue with the next part. So, interpreters play a critical role in facilitating effective communication. When the deponent and the attorneys do not share a common language, here are the key responsibilities of the interpreter during a deposition. Okay? Aquí voy a parar para poder explicar algunas cositas. So, the interpreter has something very specific that he will have to do. If you notice the first part in here, it says that the interpreter is responsible of the interpretation and also an accurate transcription. Okay? So, in other words, that means that if the interpreter is responsible of something, is of the interpretation. Si yo estoy interpretando, yo voy a utilizar el mismo caso que utilicé a una persona que está siendo acusada de un robo y no habla español, pero no habla inglés, perdón. En ese caso, yo tengo que ser la persona que va a ser responsable de sus palabras. O sea, de todo lo que salga de su boca va a ser básicamente como si fuese su consecuencia. O sea, yo tengo que representarlo. Pero no voy a utilizar la palabra representar, pero la palabra adecuada sería voy a tomar su lugar o sus palabras como las mías. Si notan también en los puntos de abajo dicen consecutive interpretation. El intérprete, the interpreter also has to have a consecutive interpretation. So that means that, for example, si yo hablo español, if I speak in English and I start talking in Spanish y comienzo a hablar en español, la persona que va a ser mi intérprete va a tener que repetir lo que estoy diciendo yo al mismo momento. Pero la palabra que hay que verificar aquí mucho es que es consecutivo. Consecutive. Interpretation. Now, interpreting also non-verbal communication. Si notan, algo más que hay que hacer es interpretar, pero con los gestos. So, for example, you have gestures, expressions, or pauses. And also, additional to this, in the consecutive interpretation, you need to have clarity when you speak and also avoid interruptions. Okay? So you need to avoid interruptions. So, in this case, as interpreters, we need to avoid these two types of things. Something else that we need to maintain is that we need to maintain neutrality. Okay, as we watch in the video, I don't know if you notice, but when we talk, and let's say that the person that we are representing, he speaks Spanish. He speaks Spanish, and maybe you feel sorry for him because well, maybe he speaks English. I mean, he doesn't speak English, and he only speaks Spanish, and you feel sorry, and you start losing neutrality, and then you start trying to add in some words. Okay, so you need to be impartial and neutral. Okay. So something else that we need to understand is that we need to have a knowledge of the cultural and linguistic clarification. Okay. Si por ejemplo, la persona está hablando de que ella vio que alguien, digamos que le metió en su bolsa un objeto que pues robaron y la gente está diciendo que ella fue la que robó. Debe haber una fluida transición de palabras. ¿Qué quiere decir eso? De que los eventos como están ocurriendo o como lo está explicando la persona, debo explicarlos de la misma manera, de manera fluida y clara. ¿Ok? No debo agregar nada más, recuerden. So, for example, let's say that someone is explaining that, well, someone put in my pocket that cell phone. I didn't know that cell phone was inside of my pockets. Yo debo traducirlo, interpretarlo, perdón, de la misma forma. ¿Ok? Ahora, if we read the part below, it says, the interpreter's primary role during a legal deposition is to bridge the language barrier and facilitate clear and accurate communication between all parties involved, helping to ensure that the deposition process is fair, thorough, and legally sound. Okay? So that means that at the moment that you have to interpret someone, what you're doing is that you're building a bridge. And people that maybe don't understand you or don't understand the language will understand with you. So you will be a bridge. Okay? Now the question is in here, why do you consider these aspects to be important in an interpreter? This is an important question. I would like to know your answers. So, for example, if you give me your opinion, I think that being an interpreter, this is something that it's not something that maybe you can believe that it's not important. Because, for example, maybe some people, they don't know some languages, and for them it's difficult to understand a language. But in that case, that's why we have interpreters. And interpreters, their assignment, or their job is just to understand and communicate what the person that they're interpreting. And if we notice, this is something that maybe it's not easy, but it's the job. Okay. So I want to be focused right now with this part that says consecutive interpretation. Ahora, quiero enfocarme en esa parte. ¿Pero por qué? Porque al momento que vamos a hacer la interpretación, esta área de que es, bueno, la consecutiva, vamos a tener que tener mucho cuidado. ¿Por qué? Porque aquí vamos a tener que aplicar varias cosas. Por ejemplo, cuando una persona está hablando, tiene que tomar el tiempo para poder escuchar. So, the steps to be or to do this consecutive interpretation are listen and speak. So basically, you will work as a computer, or actually the computer does what we do, that we listen and we repeat what he's saying in the language that we want to say it. Okay? So here we have immigration hearings. Here we have this, and the description of this is: immigration hearings are legal proceedings conducted within the immigration system of a country to determine the eligibility and status of individuals who are seeking admission, residency, asylum, or other immigration benefits. These hearings are crucial in the immigration process, allowing individuals to present their cases and evidence, and they often involve complex legal and procedural matters. Immigration judges or adjudicators preside over these hearings and make decisions based on the law and the merits of each case. So if we read this part, if you notice, here it says that at the moment that we're doing immigration hearings, we're doing something that is in benefit of the immigrator. Okay? So at the moment that we're in this situation, this can happen because the country that we are, they determine the eligibility and status of the individuals. Here in Panama, we have this. Okay? Sería la inmigración. So they decide if you are legal or if you are eligible to stay in the country. But in cases that the person maybe he doesn't understand the language, in that case, that means that you need to understand him and also learn and listen to what he's saying. Okay? So basically, we need to make the judge we need to make the decision based on the law and the merits of each case. Okay? So that's why I gave you the example that, for example, if you have someone that is having this issue of immigration, and he will have to leave his country because he was being prosecuted by his country and he escaped. Well, that's a case. And at the end, the law needs to consider all of these situations and decide if it's eligible to stay or to come back to his country. So the process in here is that we need to, the main responsibility of an interpreter during immigration hearing is to facilitate effective communication between the individuals involved in the proceedings and ensure that language barriers do not hinder the fairness and accuracy of the process. Okay. So basically, your responsibility as an interpreter is to hear and facilitate communication. So it's going to be between you, well, actually between him, because I'm going to talk about you as him, and the person that is listening to him or to her. Something very important in this process is that the accuracy needs to be in a higher standard. And this is because, for example, as I said, if we're talking that, if the person is saying, mire, lo que pasa es que yo fui atacado y tuve que pasar por muchos temas de que mi familia fue abusada, yo me traje a mi familia al país, por esto y por esto, y si yo regreso a mi país van a hacerle daño a mi familia. Y hay veces de que si la persona está siendo representada por una persona, por ejemplo, que está siendo intérprete y no está explicando las cosas correctas, o no explica claramente lo que está diciendo en realidad, lo que va a ocurrir es que la persona va a ser tomada de una forma no, como no él está queriendo decir, ¿sí? Por ejemplo, si yo estoy hablando ahorita, yo estoy diciendo, bueno, me pasó esto y esto, y alguien me está interpretando, pero evita o no menciona las palabras que estoy diciendo yo, y quizás no está tampoco diciéndolo con los gestos que estoy diciéndolo yo, porque, como les dije, a mi familia la van a buscar en el país, si yo regreso, y digamos que yo no menciono eso, y tampoco hago los gestos que él está diciendo, el mensaje no va a estar siendo transmitido de la forma correcta. So, both things are important. The non-verbal message and the verbal message. Your gestures, okay? Your movements, your physical movements, your gestures in your face will also communicate what he's feeling. Okay? So here are the key responsibilities of an interpreter in immigration hearings. The first one is language interpretation. So if you're going to interpret someone who speaks Spanish and you speak Spanish, well, you will be the interpreter of him. But if you have to interpret someone who does not speak Spanish and maybe he only speaks English and you have the opportunity to speak in English, you will be their interpreter. But in the case that you speak only English and Spanish and he speaks Portuguese, then you cannot be the interpreter. Okay? And the reason of this is because when you interpret, we need to have the knowledge of the language. And If you don't know the language, then you will have a lack of knowledge of what he's saying, or you will have a lack of information. Okay, so this needs to be connected. If you know the language of him, if you know his language, you can do it. But if you don't know his language, please do not do it. Okay. The second thing is that you need to maintain neutrality. Even though, for example, voy a decir esta palabra en español. Si la persona, digamos que fue un violador, y en el caso de que ustedes tengan que interpretar lo que él está diciendo, tiene que hacerlo de una forma neutral. ¿Cómo así? Bueno, que si por ejemplo la persona está diciendo lo que él hizo y te da molestia, debo ser profesional en esa parte, porque yo estoy contando lo que él está haciendo. A pesar de que me dé molestia y me sienta enojado, debo recordar de que yo estoy siendo el intérprete de él. ¿Ok? Y como tal, a pesar de que estoy siendo su intérprete, debo mantener esa neutralidad. Debo saber de que a pesar de todo eso que está pasando que él hizo, tengo que mantenerla. Le digo otro escenario también. Si por ejemplo la persona fue violada, en el caso de que fuese que tú estás interpretando a la otra persona, tú debes mantener la neutralidad también. A pesar de que te dé molestia y tú sientas sentimiento, porque somos seres que sentimos, debemos mantener la neutralidad. Y eso no significa que no vamos a sentir, porque nos va a dar molestia. Pero debo saber de que lo que estoy diciendo tiene que ser claro. ¿Ok? Now, the next part in here, it's the cultural and linguistic clarification. What does this mean, teacher? Well, let me explain you. For example, if I'm interpreting someone who lives in, let's say, here in Panama, for example, okay? And he's saying that he wasn't in that moment that the situation happened. Él no estaba en el lugar cuando la situación ocurrió. He wasn't. But he's saying, hey, pero yo no estaba ahí. Si notaron, if you notice, at the moment that I say, hey, pero no, yo no estaba ahí. Hey, pero yo no estaba ahí. I avoid a few words. And at the moment that you're speaking and you're listening to what he's saying, you need to have a knowledge of his cultural and linguistic clarifications. So, si ustedes no saben lo que está diciendo, maybe you can ask him, hey, can you repeat again what you said? ¿O puedes repetir lo que dijiste? Para que haya una claridad en lo que está diciendo. O por decirlo así, también puede decir, pero yo no hice eso, o yo creo que esto está todo mal. Y de repente la persona hasta puede hablar muy rápido. Pero al momento que ocurra esto, yo debo tratar de que la persona que está hablando y que está comunicando pueda darse a entender. ¿Ok? Porque si no se da a entender, va a ser muy complicado para él. ¿Ok? Entonces, then we need to have also interpreting non-verbal communication. This part is very important, as I said. If you notice, at the moment that you are interpreting someone and you don't do that gesture that he's doing, for example, if he feels anxious or he feels angry, you need to express yourself as an angry person. Even though you don't feel angry, you need to start feeling in some way angry, but it's going to be something like you're acting, okay? So this in nonverbal communication sometimes will look like you were acting, okay? Also, if you notice, the consecutive interpretation, as I said, is something that it's going to be consecutive. So you listen and you repeat at the moment. And even though maybe the word that he's saying is not in English, you need to try out, or you need to find a word that is similar to that word. And the last three responsibilities that maybe are important. I mean, all of them are important, but this one has a value that maybe if you don't consider them as an important, or if you don't see the importance of these ones, well, you will fail. Confidentiality, it's something very important. Let me explain you why. If someone gives you some information, he's giving you the confidence, or he's trusting in you just to understand him. Okay? So if you are interpreting someone and he's telling you a secret, you need to have confidentiality. Okay? The next one is accuracy. Now, and clarity. You need to be accurate when you speak and when you are interpreting, and also clarity. Try to avoid adding words where you don't hear words. If you don't hear any word that he said, please do not do it. If you think that that word fits better, please do not do it. In the case that maybe he's saying something that it's not clear, then you can ask him if the word that you will interpret is correct. Por ejemplo, si yo estoy diciendo es que esa pelada no me hizo caso, yo puedo preguntarle a él, is it okay for you if I say, o se lo diré en español en ese caso, is it okay for you if I say that that girl didn't obey you? Yo puedo preguntarle para que haya claridad en lo que está diciendo. And the last one is professionalism. We need to have professionalism when we speak. So that means that even though if the person doesn't have professionalism, you need to have it. Or if the person gets angry or something, you need to stay quiet or calm. Okay? Even though the person is stressed, try to stay in that area, okay? I want to read this part. In immigration hearings, interpreters play a crucial role in ensuring that individuals who may not speak the official language of the country have equal access to justice and can effectively present their cases. Their role is essential in upholding the principle of due process and fairness in immigration proceedings. Okay? So this is the glossary that you have. Now, I'm going to give you some instructions. If you notice at the top, it says glossary of 100 words related to courtroom trials, deposition and immigration hearings, along with brief meanings. The instructions are, choose one term that caught your attention. Read the definition in class, and then review the glossary. The other week, we will have an activity. Okay? So we have this glossary. If you see that we have courtroom trials, we have this word education, bailiff, burden of proof, contempt of court, cross-examination, defendant, evidence, gavel, habeas corpus, impeachment, jury, mistrial, not guilty, objection, perjury, quash, recess, sentencing, testimony, verdict, affidavit, consult, deponent, exhibit, in camera, in leading question, notice, oath, privilege, reporter, subpoena, transcript, under penalty of perjury, voir dire, witness. The immigration hearings are, the words that we have are adjustments of status, asylum, border patrol, secret court, deportation, entry visa, green card, humanitarian parole, immigrant, J1 visa, K1 visa, LPR, naturalization, overstay, and removal proceedings. So we have here the references, and the references are Rilo V&D, Glossary of Common Court, Tribunal and Legal Terms for Interpreters. Okay, and also the next one. Okay. So if you have any question, this is the time to ask the questions. You have any question? If you don't have any question, then let's take a break of 15 minutes, okay? Let's take a break of 15 minutes and then we come back. Okay, so at 7:40, we come back, okay? So please come back at 7:40.
Profesor.
Sí, dígame.
¿Ya damos por finalizar la clase o todavía transcurre?
No, estamos en break ahorita.
Ah, ok.
Okay. Okay, welcome back. Okay, so in this time right now, with the 10 minutes that we have to continue with the topics, or well, we need to make a review. Okay, so we're gonna do a review of what we were talking. Okay, so first of all, just to explain you again, we were talking about, first of all, about courtroom trials. Okay, this is how we do it. This is how we see this, and we need to understand also how this works. So, for example, we need to understand the roles of judges, attorneys, witnesses, all of these people that it's included in here. We need to understand their role. Okay, so at the moment that you start like doing this thing called interpretation, remember, it's important for you just to have a knowledge of what you are going to do, and also know the person that it's in front of you. Okay, then also we talk about the legal depositions. So as I said, it's like a in other words, in simple words, it's a meeting or a pre-meeting before the trial. It's like a meeting that you're having with the person that you will be representing, and you have to talk in behalf of him. So it's like you need to understand him, understand his situation, and also you in that moment you will start interpreting. Okay, because you in that meeting you will have and also, well, you have also the attorney with you. So this is the role that interpreter has, as I said, and you notice in this part. And second, let me show you. The first role, as I said, is the language interpretation. The second one is maintain neutrality. Remember, this is one of the most important parts of the role, the key, or the responsibilities of the interpreter. In immigration, remember, here is cultural and linguistic clarification. Then interpreting non-verbal communication, consecutive interpretation and confidentiality, accuracy and clarity, professionalism. That's the last one. Okay. So then, if you notice, the interpreter has some roles, critical roles indeed. So remember, you are the interpreter because the person that you are presenting doesn't have or doesn't share a common language with the other persons or the other people. Okay? So remember, you need to do all of these things just to maintain the clarification and also the accurate point of the person that you're representing. So remember, try to give this deposition process as a fair and legally sound. Okay. Also, if the person is expressing something, do not add anything or take something out of the sentence that he's saying. If he's saying that he's angry, you need to express yourself as someone that is angry. Okay. So in the immigration hearings, remember, in these cases, remember, it's important to listen and to apply the effective communication between the individuals involved in the proceeding and ensure that language barriers do not hinder the fairness and accuracy of the process. Okay? So try to remember that this is for someone that is affected by, maybe it can be an issue in his country or a situation in his society or even with his family. okay? So the person that is involved in this kind of situation, he doesn't have it easy. So we need to process and we need to understand him and also give all of our best to interpret him in the best way, okay? And finally, as I said, these are the words that you have to, I don't want you to learn it because I know that there are a lot of words, but at least I want you to choose one term that caught your attention. Then I want you to read the definition in class, and then we need to review the glossary. The other week we'll have an activity, okay? So remember, these are the words that we have to check. For example, you have the courtroom trials. These are the courtroom trials. The next one are the depositions, okay? Then you have the immigration hearings, okay? So just to remind you, okay? I don't know if you remember, but in the platform, you will see the 2 videos, okay? I don't know if you remember that part that I said in the document in here, this one. So I was saying that in the first lesson, you will have to watch a video, okay? If you notice, that's a video, a day in the life of a court interpreter, okay? So you have to read it. I mean, to watch the video. Then you need also to, you need to listen again or watch again the video, the second video. Then you need to read again the activity. And all of these videos will have to discuss it in next class, okay? So that's the activity that you have for next class. And also remember that you need to do the, well, in English, all right, let me do it in Spanish. Recuerden que deben hacer la evaluación estudiantil, ¿ok? Esta evaluación deben hacerla para el día de, bueno, la siguiente semana en realidad. Si pueden tenerla para la siguiente semana será perfecto. Y también, la segunda parte, sería la heteroevaluación, ¿ok? Esa es la otra evaluación que también deben estar haciendo, ¿ok? Algo más que quiero mencionar es que recuerden las actividades en el calendario. Hay que tener las lecturas, hay que hacer las lecturas, muchachos. We need to read the readings. Why? Because at the end, we need to understand like all the terms. And if we have the opportunity to be in a courtroom, well, we will remember all of this information, okay? So in the next week, we'll have the test. So this is something very important for you because I know that you are ready. I know that you know a lot, and that's good. But I need you to understand all the languages and the words that we have to learn, okay? So another thing is that the test, just to let you know, the test, it's easy, it's not hard. It's going to be about what we were talking in here. Va a ser acerca de lo que estamos hablando. Va a ser también acerca de los videos. It's going to be also about the videos, okay? Also, I want you to read also the books that are in the virtual book, okay, during the week. Así que quiero motivarlos en esa parte. I want you to be motivated in that part, okay? And also, if you want, you can read the readings in advance, okay? And watch the video of the next class. If you feel that maybe you understand all the topics that you were listening right now, you can continue and watch the videos that we were watching and we were talking, okay? So let's say that maybe you don't understand this topic. You can go to the next one, okay? If you finish the first model, you can watch the second video if you want, okay? So this is all for today, guys. Thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you can have a good evening, okay?
Ok. Bueno, profesor, si no tenemos más que agregar, podemos dar por finalizada la sesión del día de hoy. Buenas noches, chicos, que pasen una excelente noche y tengan una excelente semana.